windswept steppes of Mongolia, where the horizon stretches like an ocean of grass, a boy was born into hardship. His name was Temujin. He was no prince, no favored son of destiny, only the child of a clan chief, surrounded by rival tribes who lived by the bow and the horse. Fate struck early. His father was poisoned by enemies, and his family cast adrift was left to starve. Temujin tasted hunger, betrayal, and slavery. He was bound in chains, beaten by rivals, and mocked as nothing more than a broken orphan. But even in despair, the boy's eyes burned with fire. He escaped. He endured. He swore vengeance. Over years, Temujin rose from exile, gathering men not by fear alone, but by loyalty. He promised reward for service, punishment for betrayal, and justice under his rule. In a land where trust was rare, he forged bonds stronger than blood. In 1206, the tribes gathered at a Kurultai on the banks of the Onan River. There, Temujin was raised upon the white felt and proclaimed Genghis Khan, Genghis Khan, universal ruler. From the steppe thundered an army like no other. The Mongol tribes, once fractured and feuding, were united. A storm was gathering, and the world would tremble. The Mongol army was the very embodiment of the steppe. Swift horsemen, tireless and disciplined, moved with the wind. Each rider carried multiple bows, arrows tipped with fire or armor-piercing heads. They could ride for days without rest, drinking the blood of their horses to survive. But more than skill, the Mongols carried something far more dangerous: order. Under the Yasa, Genghis's code of law, no warrior stood above the law, and betrayal meant death. Units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 moved as one body, striking with precision. Their first fury fell upon the Khwarezmian Empire. Genghis sent a caravan of traders offering peace. Genghis himself entered the mosque, climbed the pulpit, and declared, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Samarkand followed, its walls shattered by siege engines. At Nishapur, after the death of a Mongol commander, vengeance was absolute. The city reduced to ash, tens of thousands slain. Survivors told tales of pyramids made of skulls, of rivers red with blood. To the east, the Mongols turned upon the Jin dynasty of China. They captured Chinese engineers, masters of siegecraft, and used their knowledge to reduce mighty cities. Walls that had stood for centuries crumbled before Mongol ingenuity. The world was learning a truth. The Mongols were unstoppable. Not just warriors, but architects of terror itself. After Genghis's death in 1227, his sons and grandsons carried the storm onward. The empire did not fracture, it expanded. To the west, armies surged into Persia, the Caucasus, and the plains of Russia. At the Kalka River, 1223, a coalition of Russian princes was crushed. Their leaders were captured, laid beneath wooden planks, and suffocated as Mongol feasts were held above them. A lesson carved in cruelty. In 1241, Europe itself faced the thunder of hooves. At Legnica, Mongols under Baidar annihilated Polish knights. At Mohi, on the fields of Hungary, Batu Khan unleashed a masterpiece of tactics, feigning retreat to lure the Hungarians into ambush. The Danube ran red with blood. Panic seized Europe. Monasteries rang bells in dread. Kings trembled, praying the storm would pass. And it did. Not by victory, but by chance. The death of Ogedei Khan, son of Genghis, forced the Mongol princes to return home to elect a new great Khan. Europe had been spared, not by strength but by fate. He conquered the Song dynasty, uniting all of China under Mongol rule and founding the Yuan dynasty. From the Pacific to the Black Sea, the empire of Genghis Khan stretched further than any before or since. The largest land empire in human history. Yet even empires of iron bend to time. Kublai Khan sought to extend Mongol might further still. Twice he launched fleets against Japan. Twice the samurai stood ready. And twice typhoons rose from the sea, the kamikaze, divine wind, and shattered the Mongol armadas. For the first time, the storm was broken. Across the empire, cracks began to spread. In Russia, the Golden Horde ruled, but rebellions simmered. In Persia, the Ilkhanate faltered. The Chagatai Khanate fractured in Central Asia. And in China, resentment of Mongol rule grew. By 1368, the Yuan dynasty was overthrown, and the Mongols were driven back to the steppes. The empire of Genghis Khan was no more, but the legacy remained. The Mongols had redrawn the map of the world. They had destroyed empires, yet opened the Silk Road, connecting east and west in trade, ideas, and culture. They spread paper, gunpowder, and compass, the tools that would shape the modern world. And always, above it all, the image of Genghis Khan endured. Once a boy abandoned in the wilderness, who rose to become the scourge of empires, the unifier of the steppes, and the architect of an empire that shook the earth. The Mongols came like a storm, and the world has never forgotten. Their name still echoes in the chronicles of kings and the nightmares of cities burned. But they were not only destroyers. They were builders of a new order, however brutal, that stretched across continents. The eternal blue sky had watched them rise and fall. And still, under that sky, the legend of the Mongols lives.